Hello, everybody. This is Anna. Every time I think that I am going to start having something figured out technologically, the universe has a way of teaching me that I'm going to have to go with the flow. So I did think that I was going to do this on the YouTube channel. Now we're back to Facebook. I hope it works well. If this doesn't work well, then I suppose we'll just go with the flow then too. Hi, Rochelle. Hi, Leanne. Uh, hello, hello everybody. I'm so happy to see everybody here. I've missed everybody a whole lot. Let's pray that the connection continues to work for us. And if not, just know that I've missed you guys so much. I've had a lot of time to reflect on a lot of things over the last couple of weeks, and we're going to spend some time talking about some of those. I tried to do a little video on some of my teachers a couple days ago, and that kept not going so well also. So we're gonna spend some time talking about that today. I have created Sacred Space, but I'm gonna talk with you guys about some of the things that I normally do. For whatever reason, when I'm doing Facebook Live, I can't follow all of the conversations live. I know I should be able to, but so I'm just going to talk and hope that you guys get the whole message. I'm sorry I won't be able to read your messages as I go. Over this last couple of weeks, many of you know that there's pressure's been coming from a lot of directions, and I know you all feel the same way. It may look a little different for you. It may look a little, for some of us, it's spiritual. For some of us, it's emotional. For some of us, it's physical, lots of physical pain. For some people, they have a lot of other things coming up. But in general, I know that a lot of people have a lot on their plates right now, and I was not I was not immune to that, and I was feeling a lot of pressure, and I can feel that I needed to take the same medicine I would give anybody else, which is to go within. And I did that a lot by going without. I know I definitely hiked. I definitely spent some time out in nature, but as far as seeking solace, that was really internal, and I'm actually still doing that right now. I'm spending a little bit of time in southern Utah. I'll be back up to Salt Lake in a couple of days. But I want to spend some time just sharing a little bit about what I was reflecting on. Like I said, I tried to kind of touch on this the other day, but I've just had a lot of time to reflect on who my greatest teachers have been throughout this earthly experience, and what it really means to be a good teacher. What does it mean to be a good teacher? Because I think that so often when we're growing up, we tend to think that the more obedient we are, the better our teacher was, or whatever. And that may be the case for some people. It may depend on, from person to person. But I want to share my experience of what my greatest teachers were, because for me, it was not necessarily a matter of what created the most obedience. Obviously, you guys can probably tell that I kind of have my own path in life. But as far as school goes, academically, it wasn't as challenging for me as it is for a lot of people. As far as like testing, I could test really easily. I could do really well in the courses. But I really loved some of my classes, and I absolutely did not love some of my classes. And I can really tell in hindsight what some of the determining factors of that were. Some of this will be a little bit repetitive for some of you that may have seen the videos the other day, but I'm going to go into a little extra detail today anyway. So first of all, the teachers that helped me to feel safe to grow, I really looked forward to going to those classes, because even if I still had to take tests in those classes, even if I still had homework, even if I still had all of these structured things that I had to do, because they also had a structure that they had to follow, it was more of an essence that they created in their classroom. They created an environment where I felt like it was safe to grow, where I felt like it was encouraged for me to grow, where I could ask questions. Asking questions felt safe. And so those are things that really, really stood out for me. Even when I go all the way back to elementary school, the experiences that would have been more positive versus less positive. Now, to be fair, school was not the most positive experience overall for me, but there are a couple of teachers that really stand out as like heroes to me. Some of those were early on, some of them a little later on, but I want to talk about the two specific ones from high school that were polar opposites of one another. And we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about how polar opposites are really good at teaching also. I'm going to get into that a little bit later on in this video. But as far as those two particular teachers go, one of them was very, very open, kind of known as being a hippie. He was just, he taught a lot of different kinds of classes, as far, like, not just, he didn't just teach one specific course, but the one that I loved the most was Community of Caring. I know that he taught some other ones that were more academic. Sociology was a great one that he taught. He taught history, but he also taught a Community of Caring class. And the Community of Caring class was just encourage students to go out in the world in whatever way they could be a light and help make the world a better place, and to get some credit for school for going out and making the world a better place. And I think that's a pretty awesome thing to do. But in general, any of the classes that I had with him felt like open-minded places where I could really like bite in really hard and ask as many questions as I wanted, and that was really refreshing for me. And on the polar end of the spectrum, as far as course classes, was a religious course. You know, at the time that I was in high school, I was in the process of kind of losing my religion, so to speak. And it was not an easy process for me. This was not a rebellious process. I wasn't leaving the church to like, so that I could go do some bad stuff or anything like that. It was really hard, and I was really questioning a lot of things, and I desperately felt like I needed someone who I could just ask anything, absolutely anything. And I happened to find that in high school with a seminary teacher who was, for those of you who are not from Utah, for those of you who are not familiar with Mormon traditions, seminary is a religious class that's taught in high school. It is not a state required class. Many parents may somewhat or whatever require it for their children, but for me, I took that class because I wanted to. I was really, really, really wanting to learn about these questions that I had, and I happened to get a phenomenal teacher who not only answered my questions. I'm actually going to call this one out by name. Brother Case was so amazing. He was only there my first year of high school, which I was so sad about. But he would read. He would encourage me to read books, which I'd go home and read, and then I'd come back and I'd say, well, what about this? And I'd ask him to read a book, and we would have these respect-filled dialogues where I didn't feel like he was looking down his nose at me. He really took me seriously when I was asking these questions, and that was so important for me. And not only that, but if he didn't know a question, if he didn't know the answer to a question, he would say, I don't know, but I'm going to go find out. And he really would. He would go home and he would devote some time to studying it. He not only had the humility, this incredible giant of a man, in my opinion, had the humility to acknowledge when he didn't know the answer, but he also would go then and try to actually study it. He took me that seriously. And so that was really refreshing for me. Both of those experiences kind of changed my high school experience overall. And so to me, those were two great teachers in a traditional sense. In a less traditional sense, I want to talk about teachers that we just invite into our lives. Two of the greatest teachers I've had. One is, most of you know that my husband and I are in the process of, basically divorced as far as we're concerned at this point, and moving forward in a way that just honors the friendship. But one of the reasons why this is going to be such a simple thing to do is because when we look back on the last couple of years, I can't even believe how much we've learned with each other, from each other. He's been one of my greatest teachers, and not just for the ways that he's made things any easier for me, but also the ways that he's really pushed me. He's really encouraged me to become a stronger person, and some of those ways have been more pleasant than other ways. But to be honest, I know that a huge amount of the inner strength that I've gained, and the inner confidence, and the knowingness of being able to come from a voice of who I really am, a lot of that comes, if not the the lion's share of the last couple of years of that has come from experiences that I've had with him as a direct result of him. So he has been one of my all-time greatest teachers. And then on his other end of that polar scale, we'll talk about the tiny human, the Lucas, my Lukey bear. He's my best buddy, and he is such a great teacher. Not only has he been one of my greatest teachers since, since I first found out I was pregnant, because it changed the way that I was routing my life, so to speak. But really, the big moment was the day I met him. When they put him in my arms, and I realized I had just built a human. I was so proud of myself. Oh my gosh, I've never been so proud of myself. And from that moment forward, he's been teaching me more and more every day. He has not only taught me how to learn to be the best possible example to him that I can be, and I'm still learning that every day, but every single day I'm trying to be better so that I can be in action what I would like to be as an example for him. So awesome teacher in that regard. He's been that way ever since he was just spitting up bubbles. But he also teaches me, like literally teaches me things all the time. He has I brought one of his stuffed animals with me down to St. George. This is Cinder. This is Lucas's Reiki dragon, and this dragon has the power to help other people with love and light. Lucas was also telling me the other day that he's like, he was talking about one of our friends, a really close friend of our family who passed on, and he was talking about how he's able to have these communications with him, and how that helps him to feel connected to him. And this is such beautiful practice that really there's not an adult on planet Earth that wouldn't benefit from incorporating the practice of whether you believe that Lucas is actually talking to our past friend, and I don't mean past as in no longer our friend, I mean as in our friend who has passed on, whether you believe that he's genuinely talking to him or not, whether you just believe that that's something that he says just to make himself feel better, either way, this is a beautiful practice for helping your avatar, helping your supercomputer just to feel more connected to those who have passed on. So it doesn't matter whether you believe it logically or believe it spiritually. Either way, it is such an enlightened way for a tiny little person to be thinking about the world, and he makes me really proud all the time. This last couple of weeks, though, because I was going internally, I was going internal to deal with a lot of the external pressures, and what that allowed me to do is reflect on the light in those pressures. And so that begs the question, what am I learning? What am I learning from this? What is the ultimate lesson here? What am I supposed to learn from this pressure, from this density, from this darkness that I'm feeling? And what I came to realize is that there's not a single lesson I've ever learned in life that hasn't in some way had the darkness as a springboard. Okay? So whether you've been a part of my life more recently, or whether you're someone who's been a part of my life my entire life, my guess is that we've had a little bit of a range of emotions that we've gone through together. But some of my greatest teachers have been the people who I've had some of the greatest discord with. You know, I have a brother now. His name is, well, actually, I'm not going to talk about which one. He'll know which one he is. But I'd say as far as like our level of peace within the family, it's been many years since we've felt any level of discord with each other, at least that I'm aware of. And yet, as a child, I mean, we butt heads like you couldn't really quite believe. And when I reflect now on my childhood, I can see he was one of my greatest teachers, for better or worse. When I reflect on, I was reflecting on one of my best friendships from childhood, and I grew up in a very religious family, and my family is very Western, as far as not Western like the Old West, but Western as far as Eastern to Western thinking. The family I grew up in was very Westernized thinking, and One of my greatest teachers moved in next door when I was just 5 or 6 years old, and she moved in from China, and she brought the East with her. And she chose to be part of my family, which was brave. She chose to come experience a lot of lessons with us, and she somehow always managed to just have the calmest demeanor, the calmest personality. She was really just such a great example, in my opinion, of Kuan Yin. She just integrated grace everywhere she went, and she quietly just lived an example of being kind to others and never expecting other people to do anything for her in return. Whether they did or didn't, she was just grateful for them. So yeah, she was one of my greatest teachers, just in her neutrality. One of my greatest teachers, I know that most of us in our lives have experienced traumas of some sort, and sometimes in those experiences, those traumas have what we would consider not like, in that experience, it may feel like that person is the villain in our story, you know, and it may feel really, 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 really clear that that person is your bad guy in that experience. But and like I said, most of us have one of those. And in my story, I know that there was certainly a while where I felt like I had a bad guy, but I can also look back and I can realize how much I've learned from that experience, how much I love myself as a result, and that, you know, I wouldn't want to sign up for his trials and tribulations in this life any more than I would want to sign up for mine. And so, in hindsight, he's one of my greatest teachers. Um, I know that that the church that I grew up in had a lot of things that I really resonated with. They just simply made my heart sing. They would talk about a teacher, Jesus, that I just loved, and I recognized him as someone that I considered to be one of my best friends. And but then there were other aspects that I didn't resonate with, and that made it really, really, really hard for me to I don't know, I guess, to feel okay with myself for a long time. And then when I left that, I feel like I questioned if there even is a God. I questioned if there is anything that happens after this life. And I don't have any problem with anyone who still questions all those things. Everyone has their own perspective, their own reality. Now I look around me and I can't see anything that isn't proof that God exists. Can't see anything that isn't proof that God loves us. I learn from things everywhere that I go, but I also have been able to see that I was learning a lot from that organization, and I'm really grateful now in hindsight that I learned all of the lessons that I did, and I'm grateful that I'm learning and continue to learn the power of discernment so that I can integrate which lessons really, really resonate for me and which ones really, really do not. And I can know what questions I have now so that I can go out and research those questions and find really what does resonate the very, very most with me. Another thing that has been really great as far as teachers go, we're talking about different varieties of teachers. I've learned, believe it or not, a lot from my crystals. Most of the crystals that I have over here that I've pulled out for purposes of this particular discussion are all about balance and integration. I've got some muakite from Australia. These are for, I brought these out because I know that there's a lot going on with the pole shifts right now. Many people are not even aware of this. That's something I highly suggest you look up. But just to kind of help us to integrate the pole shifts a little bit, we've got a couple Merkabas in here. Those are not only a sacred symbol to meditate on, but also a vehicle of light. There's many, and you access it by balancing your innards, your inner self, your inner world and your outer world. Kyanite, which is really, really great for integration and balancing of energies. So really, as you start to study different kinds of crystals and what they happen to do, they can become great teachers to you. And while they're also helping you with the resonance that their sacred geometry gives off. In that same little group, I have a little Ganesha, a little golden Ganesha. Um, Ganesha is the remover of obstacles. Now, it does actually happen to be the beginning of, I believe, Ganesha's birthday right now. Chaturthi, I'm not sure if you pronounce how you pronounce that, but Ganesha is the remover of obstacles, and it's not because these obstacles are bad for us per se. It's because after you learn from an obstacle, you no longer need the obstacle to be there any longer. You don't need to keep going through the same obstacles. Now you do keep going through the same obstacles and keep learning the same lessons over and over again until you actually learn the lesson. But once you learn the lesson, you don't need to learn it anymore. And that obstacle is, you kind of graduated from that way of thinking, and your perspective changes, your world changes. He helps us to find a more a less black and white perspective and see the whole prism, so that we can know that the world is really a full rainbow, and and we don't have to choose the same obstacles any longer. Other teachers, there's some great websites, some great teachers that I have had over the years. Many of you who I know on here watch Aluna Ash. Aluna Ash is one of the greatest channels that I know personally. Well, I shouldn't say I know her personally. I feel like I do, but that I've listened to over the years. She's magnificent. I know that a ton of people really resonate with. Is it? It does Abraham. Esther Hicks, is it? It used to be her husband Jerry as well, but they channel Abraham. David Wilcock has been a great teacher for me as far as being able to not only take the esoteric aspect of things, but also integrate the science behind things. And he's been a great teacher. I'd encourage you to look up some of his information, or sign up for Gaia Network on television. Another one, Spirit Science. I just posted a video of theirs earlier, but I've watched quite a few of theirs over the years, and that's a great integration, again, of spirit and science for those of you who really want to not only feel like you're scratching that esoteric itch, or only scratching that scientific itch, but to see how the two of them get married. They really are. They are one and the same. They're a marriage that has, for whatever reason, for purposes of human development and learning, they've believed that they are not the same, but they really are. But the number one, well, a couple other teachers, I want to say that in starting to spread my lessons, it's helped me to integrate my lessons. I've started to really realize just how much I have learned over the years. So I really want to encourage any of you who are thinking about sharing some of what your experiences have been with love and life and ascension, or any of the above, or whatever. Just know that you'll find that some of the greatest teachers you have are your students, because they push you to really learn how much you have learned. And so I just want to thank all of you, every single student that, or not, I don't know, my teachers, every single teacher student that I share this relationship with. I want to thank you, because you really are encouraging me to become better, to appreciate how much I have learned. I really have surprised myself a lot of times at just how much information I've managed to acquire and assimilate over the years. But the number one teacher that I have had in my life is my darkness. And I can see that now. I can see that any time I looked within, and I was afraid what I might see, and I didn't know properly, as a little kid, especially if little kids start to look inside and they think that there's something in there that their parents might be ashamed of, or their friends might be ashamed of, or their family might be ashamed of, or anything. It creates coping mechanisms and habits that are very, very fear-based. And I can see now that those were really the springboards that I'm going back. I'm reflecting on my life. I'm releasing a lot of pain and things like that. And in doing that, I'm realizing that those were all of the greatest learning lessons. Life would not have been much of a learning experience for me if I just, laid there and watched the sunset all day, every day for the rest of my life. I mean, you wouldn't even really appreciate a sunset if all you ever saw was a sunset. It's hard to imagine not appreciating the magnificence of a sunset. But what if it never changed? And what if it was all you ever saw? We grow. We Our greatest teachers, those that you could ultimately call your greatest guru, are our moments, our people, our experiences that make us grow. These are not always dark moments, of course, but they are, tremendously light moments, many of them, but they're still moments where growth is inspired, where vibration is increasing, or where vibration is being jostled so that it has the potential to increase. But either way, I just know that this entire life of experiences, the good, the bad, everything all of it has led to me finally being in a place where I can say that I love myself, where I can say that I genuinely love others. I always thought I did. I mean, I had nothing but love to give, but there's a total difference that you can feel in your heart once you come into a place of just loving yourself and knowing that you are worth the effort, that you are worth the work, that there's no one on planet Earth that's more worthy of love than you are. I can see now that I've had some incredible teachers. Like I said, I've shared a lot of them. My greatest teachers passed on well before this incarnation. And they've become some of the greatest teachers throughout human history as well. But what I've come to realize is that I've always been my teacher. I was always the one who was drawn to whatever information was helping me to grow, or was helping me to learn a little harder way, I guess. But ultimately it was me, and ultimately you are your greatest teacher. I'm very, very grateful that you guys have allowed me to be a part of your lives. I'm very grateful for everything that I've learned from many of you, but I know that ultimately it was my willingness to make an effort for myself in my life that has drawn most of you into my life. And so we are all our greatest teachers. You are your greatest teacher. You are some of my greatest teachers. And I just want to thank you and honor you all for being a part of my journey. Have a wonderful night. Love and light.